I think the problem you've got with Rangers and Celtic just now is that they obviously had the game this afternoon, and that's a spanning in the works. I think obviously the recruitment teams and that are working on deals behind the scenes, but the managers are both central to that as well. And I think you'll see that kicking on now that both those games are out the way. I think that's just an unnecessary distraction for them, certainly in terms of the transfer window. But as we spoke about before, there, you spoke with Fraser there about and Brendan Rodgers has said as well, we need to bring in a striker before the close of the window. Mm-hmm. Obviously the one we're talking about is the one was the Brondby striker, Mathias.
Kvistgaarden.
Yeah, obviously there's been talks with Brondby, but I spoke to Brondby sources this afternoon, and they are adamant there has been no bid from Celtic. Obviously there has been discussions, and they were quite a bit apart in terms of the valuation. So as it stands, unless Celtic come in late on, it's looking unlikely. But I see that Brendan Rodgers has indicated it's more likely to be a loan signing now. But I think just now, just in terms of, it's very hard to get top strikers in a permanent deal in January, and if you do, you're paying a premium for them. So maybe he's thinking, well, take somebody in short term and get more value for money come the summer. Although you would have thought when they'd sold Jota that they probably would have had a ready-made replacement to come in the door right after it. Although
Jota's when Kyogo went,
Kyogo went, Aye, but Jota's obviously a slightly different position. But there's a few. I know that there was David Strelic of Slovan Bratislava was discussed.
He's an interesting one, isn't he?
Yep, I think that's what. But they turned down £5 million from Middlesbrough, and their sporting director said they wanted like anything between 8 and 10 million. So even at this stage, this is probably a lot of money. Could they get him for less? Maybe in the summer, you'd probably find that they probably could. So I think it's more about value for money now for Celtic than anything else, and getting the right players in at the right price.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one, Scott, because even this time last week, you're looking at the situation, you think, well, Tierney looks as if that can get done ahead of the deadline. Jota's back in, and you look at it and think, well, wow, what a brilliant window this is shaping up, because there probably is going to be a striker as well. And yet here we are, 24 hours away. And I think the worst case scenario for the Celtic supporters would be that Tierney isn't allowed to leave Arsenal early, and that Celtic go into the second half of the season with Adam Ida and Dyson Maeda as, their main options up front. It doesn't feel quite how it felt a week ago, put it that way.
It's very much. They have got a few other options they're looking at. There's one I know of south of the border, so that could quite easily happen. But no, whatever happens, Celtic will still attract players, and they'll get a quality, as Brendan Rodgers has said. There's still quality players available in this window. It's just about whether it's a short-term fix or a long-term fix. And I think Celtic, as it stands, they just need another striker in at the top end for the second half of the season domestically, and obviously the big Champions League games. You look at him in Kelechi and Iacho. Obviously Brendan's worked with him before. He's obviously sounding about, asked the question, and it has come back that he's going to Middlesbrough. So I think this is the problem that the Celtic are going to have. Yeah, they've got Champions League football, but if there's like a half-decent club in England comes in, then it's very difficult to get them north of the border.
And we think Celtic might be about to lose another striker, don't we?
I think there's every chance they could lose a striker. It just depends on whether it's now or the end of the season.
And we're talking about Daniel Cummings.
Daniel Cummings, yeah, obviously he came on and made his Celtic debut in the Champions League game against Aston Villa. Scored an awful lot of goals for the Celtic B team in the Lowland League and in the Champions League youth levels. So no, he's obviously his goals make him look as if he's a top prospect. But Celtic have offered him a new contract, but it looks like as it stands that he's heading to West Ham. My understanding is that a pre-contract has been agreed. There's some reports down south that West Ham have made a £500,000 offer for him, and as yet there's been no reply from Celtic. So it'd be interesting to see how that pans out, because if it is £500,000, then I think it's more than Celtic would get if he went in the summer for a cross-border compensation. So I think it's one that Celtic have got to weigh up, but it looks really likely that they'll lose another one of their top talents from their academy.
I don't think Brendan Rodgers is particularly pleased with this one, Scott, because I think he spoke on Friday, didn't he? And he was almost pointing to it, just saying that young players at this club, they need to understand, they need to show a bit of patience. I'll play young players when they're ready for the first team. And he says you've got to be careful if you listen to agents who've got their own agendas. Well, I was going to say it's almost as if Brendan Rodgers was aware of what was going, but he was definitely aware that there was some interest and some possibility of losing this young boy to West Ham.
No, that's certainly the case. I mean, the amount of goals he scored, would put him on the radar for a lot of clubs. You know what I mean? Especially the goals he scored in the Youth Champions League. So it was always going to put him on the radar. If Celtic lose him, they're not exactly blameless in this either. I don't think they were very proactive in terms of offering a new contract. They have offered a new contract now, but if they thought that highly of him, why didn't they do it months ago, well before this window opened, and tried to nail him down on a long-term contract? Then they would have been in a better position than leaving it as late as they did.
Right, what else is cooking?
Obviously, but we're talking about the KT one. That'll be, reports down south the other day said it's unlikely he'll come up, but I think there's still a wee bit of hope there. But also depends on, I see he's on the bench tonight, isn't he? Him and Zinchenko as well. So remains to be seen what happens in the next 24 hours. But there's lots of names.
You don't think you don't think that one's dead yet?
I don't think.
I was speaking to somebody at Celtic over the weekend who very, very doubtful. They felt that Arsenal were making it just too awkward, and it didn't look likely at all. But that doesn't mean they're still not trying to do something.
The one thing though is that, Kieran Tierney, he won't rock the boat to make it happen. The one thing about him is his professionalism, and he'll give everything he's got until his time's up at Arsenal, sort of thing. So there's no issue on that front. But I still think that I was told earlier on by something. They still thought it was 50-50. So interesting to see what happens in the last 24 hours to see if Arsenal keep all the left back options. If Zinchenko goes, then it'll all come down to the ins and outs. And once that Arsenal door closes, then what Mikel Arteta's got, he might just let him go.